Most people think heart disease announces itself with pain, chest pain, shortness of breath, a clear warning. But biologically, the heart doesn't work that way. The heart adapts quietly for years, changing its structure, its rhythm, its workload, while you feel completely fine. In this video, you'll understand why heart problems often feel sudden, why pain is a late signal, and what the heart has been compensating for long before failure appears. Most people believe heart disease announces itself with a bang. Chest pain, shortness of breath, a dramatic, unmistakable warning. We imagine the heart as an organ that screams when something is wrong. But biologically, that image is completely misleading, because the heart does not fail loudly. It adapts, and it can adapt quietly for a very, very long time. This is why heart disease so often feels sudden, even though it has been developing silently for years. To understand why, you need to understand what the heart's real job is. The heart isn't designed to feel pain, it's designed to maintain flow. Every second of your life, your heart must deliver blood to your vital organs. The brain, the kidneys, the liver, your muscles. Stopping is simply not an option. So when conditions become difficult, the heart doesn't complain, it adjusts. This adjustment is called cardiac adaptation, and at first, it's actually protective. When your blood vessels start to stiffen, the heart just pumps harder. When your blood pressure rises, the heart muscle thickens to handle the load. When oxygen delivery becomes less efficient, the heart increases its workload to make up for it. All these changes are designed to maintain circulation. From the outside, everything seems fine. You feel normal. You go about your day. You might even exercise without any trouble. This isn't because your heart is healthy. It's because your heart is compensating. And compensation is not failure. Compensation is survival, but compensation is not free. Every single adaptation increases the heart's energy demand. A thicker heart muscle requires more oxygen. A faster heart rate increases metabolic stress. Persistent high pressure accelerates wear and tear. Still, there is no pain, because pain is not how the heart reports strain. Pain only appears when blood flow is critically compromised, or when tissue damage becomes acute. Before that point, the heart stays quiet. This silence is dangerous because it creates a false sense of reassurance. People assume that if their heart were struggling, they would feel it. They wait for symptoms that are not designed to appear early. This is why heart disease so often presents as a complete shock. A routine checkup suddenly shows abnormalities. An imaging test reveals changes. A sudden event occurs seemingly without warning. From the patient's perspective, it feels sudden. But from the heart's perspective, it's late. The heart has been adapting quietly for years. Let's look at what drives this adaptation. Modern life places constant pressure on our cardiovascular system. Chronic stress raises blood pressure. Poor sleep disrupts our autonomic balance. Inflammation stiffens blood vessels. Metabolic dysfunction alters fuel delivery to our cells. The heart responds to all of this logically. It remodels. Now, cardiac remodeling isn't inherently bad. In athletes, for example, it can be beneficial. Their hearts grow stronger to meet physical demands. But in chronic stress conditions, remodeling becomes maladaptive. The heart thickens in response to pressure, not in a quest for strength. This type of thickening actually reduces the heart's flexibility. It becomes less efficient at filling with blood between beats. Yet, its pumping power remains sufficient. So, no alarm is raised. Your blood pressure might still be controlled. Your heart rate may appear normal, but underneath, your heart is working much harder just to achieve the same output. This is the early phase of silent cardiac strain. At this stage, your blood tests often look normal. Your cholesterol may not be alarming. Markers of damage may be completely absent. Why? Because the heart muscle isn't dying. It's adapting. And adaptation doesn't spill markers into the bloodstream. This mirrors what we've previously discussed with the liver. Early disease isn't destruction. It's reorganization under stress. Over time, this reorganization has consequences. A stiffer heart muscle reduces diastolic filling, that's the relaxing and filling phase. Coronary blood flow becomes less efficient. The heart's electrical signaling can become unstable. Still, symptoms may be absent. This is why many people with significant heart changes feel fine. They might notice subtle things: reduced exercise tolerance, slower recovery after exertion, a sense of fatigue that doesn't seem to match their activity level. But these are easy to dismiss. They don't feel like heart disease. And that is exactly the problem. The heart does not use pain to signal early dysfunction. It uses performance. And performance declines gradually. The heart is especially dangerous in this regard because it has an enormous reserve capacity. It can dramatically increase its output when needed. This reserve masks the slow decline in its baseline function. Until one day, that reserve is exhausted. And that day feels sudden. A heart rhythm becomes unstable. Blood flow becomes insufficient. A vessel becomes critically narrowed. The event seems to come out of nowhere. But biologically, it was prepared by years, even decades, of silent adaptation. This is why focusing only on acute events like a heart attack misses the real story. Heart disease is not an event. It is a long process of compensation under pressure. And modern medicine often meets it late. Not because doctors are careless, but because the heart hides trouble extremely well. The heart prioritizes the survival of the system over its own comfort. It will sacrifice efficiency to maintain flow. And it will do so quietly. This understanding completely reframes how we should think about heart health. Heart health is not the absence of pain. It is the absence of chronic strain. But chronic strain is subtle. It doesn't scream. It whispers through small changes in your capacity and your resilience. Most people do not hear those whispers because they are waiting for pain. And pain is late. In part 2 of this video, we will go deeper into what actually accelerates this silent adaptation. We will explore how blood pressure, stress, and metabolism interact. We'll look at why normal readings can still hide danger, and how the heart's own repair mechanisms become suppressed over time. Because the heart doesn't fail because it's weak. It fails because it has been overworked for too long. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. In our last video, we uncovered a fundamental truth. The heart doesn't just fail suddenly. It adapts silently for years, even decades. But what pushes the heart into this long state of quiet adaptation? The answer is crucial. Because the heart doesn't change randomly. It changes in response to signals. And the most powerful signals affecting our hearts today aren't dramatic diseases. They're the everyday conditions that we've all come to accept as normal. Think about it. High blood pressure that's not too high. Stress that's just part of life. Sleep that's not perfect, but okay. Blood sugar that's borderline. Individually, each of these might seem harmless, but together they create a constant, unrelenting pressure on the heart. Let's start with blood pressure. Blood pressure isn't just a number on a cuff. It's a physical force acting on your heart with every single beat. When that pressure is even slightly elevated, your heart has to generate more force to push blood forward. To do this, the heart muscle thickens. This thickening is a process called hypertrophy. At first, hypertrophy is a smart, protective mechanism. A thicker, stronger muscle can push against higher pressure and circulation is maintained. From the outside, everything looks perfectly stable. This is precisely why so many people can live for years with mildly elevated blood pressure and feel completely fine. But there's a hidden cost. A thicker heart muscle inevitably becomes a stiffer heart muscle, and a stiff muscle doesn't relax well. You see, relaxation is just as important as contraction for the heart's function. When the heart can't relax fully, it doesn't fill with blood as efficiently between beats. This reduces its reserve capacity. Still, no pain appears. No alarm bells ring, because the heart is still pumping. Now, let's add chronic stress into the mix. Stress isn't just a psychological feeling. It's a powerful biological state. When stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline stay elevated, the heart remains in a heightened state of readiness. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, your blood vessels constrict. This is incredibly useful if you're facing a short-term danger, like running from a predator. But when stress becomes chronic, the heart never fully returns to its baseline. It stays partially activated all the time. This means it's working harder, even when you're resting. And what does the heart do? Again, it adapts. It becomes more muscular, more rigid, less flexible. But it's still functional. So, no alarm sounds. This is where modern life becomes particularly dangerous. Our stress is rarely acute and short-lived. It's low-grade and constant. Work deadlines, endless notifications, financial pressure, the emotional load of daily life. Our nervous system stays activated. The heart stays busy. And a busy organ doesn't have time to repair itself. Sleep is supposed to be the counterbalance to all this. Sleep is when the entire cardiovascular system resets. Your heart rate slows down, blood pressure drops, and crucial repair processes are activated. But poor sleep interrupts this vital reset. Short sleep, fragmented sleep, or staying stimulated late into the night, all of these prevent the heart from entering a state of deep recovery. When sleep is consistently disrupted, the heart remains in a semi-stressed state overnight. This is especially damaging. Why? Because nighttime is when your blood pressure is supposed to fall significantly. This drop is called nocturnal dipping. When that dipping doesn't happen, your heart experiences 24-hour pressure. There's no break. That constant load accelerates the heart's remodeling. And again, you feel no pain. Just silent adaptation. Now, let's layer our metabolism on top of all this. Conditions like insulin resistance change how fuel is delivered to our cells. Blood vessels become less responsive. Inflammation increases, and oxidative stress rises. The heart has to work harder just to achieve the same output. Not because it's weak, but because the environment it's operating in has become inefficient. This is why heart disease so often overlaps with metabolic issues. It's not because a bit of sugar directly damages the heart overnight. It's because chronic metabolic dysfunction creates chronic strain, and chronic strain forces the heart to adapt. All of these factors interact and compound each other. High blood pressure raises the workload. Chronic stress keeps the system constantly activated. Poor sleep removes the windows for recovery, and metabolic dysfunction increases inefficiency. The heart, in its intelligence, responds to all of this. It adapts to survive, and this adaptation can last for decades. This is why people so often say, "I had no warning." But what they really mean is, "I had no pain." Pain was never the primary warning system. Performance was. The heart signals trouble through very subtle changes. Reduced stamina, needing longer to recover after exertion. A general sense that effort just feels harder than it used to. These changes are incredibly easy to ignore. They don't feel like a disease, they just feel like aging. And this is another trap. We normalize this decline. We assume that having reduced capacity is an inevitable part of getting older, but biologically, many of these changes are not signs of age itself, but of chronic adaptation to an unfavorable environment. Age does not automatically stiffen the heart. Our environment does. This distinction matters profoundly because it completely changes how we approach prevention. If heart disease were truly sudden, there would be little we could do. But because it develops gradually, there is a long window of opportunity to intervene. The challenge is recognizing that window. Our medical systems often focus on thresholds. Your blood pressure has to be above a certain number. Your cholesterol has to be past a cutoff. You need to have clear, undeniable symptoms. But the heart's adaptation begins long before any of these thresholds are crossed. The heart doesn't wait for a doctor's permission to adapt. It responds to the forces acting upon it, right now. And those forces are present long before a formal diagnosis is made. This is also why extreme interventions, when they finally happen, often come too late. By the time clear symptoms like chest pain appear, significant structural changes may have already become established in the heart. Reversing them becomes much harder. Not impossible, but harder. So, the key insight is this: the heart doesn't just break, it slowly reshapes itself to survive an unfavorable environment. That reshaping, that adaptation, eventually reduces its resilience. And when resilience finally drops below the demands placed upon it, events occur. In our next video, we'll look at what happens when this adaptation finally reaches its limit. We'll explore why sudden cardiac events are rarely sudden, what actually triggers a collapse, and how aligning with your body's needs, not living in fears, what truly protects the heart. Because once you understand how the heart adapts, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me so suddenly?" And you start asking, "What signals has my heart been responding to for all these years?" Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the final part of our series. In our first two parts, we followed the heart as it adapted silently for years. We saw how pressure, stress, poor sleep, and metabolic strain slowly reshape the heart, all without pain, without warning, and without any dramatic symptoms. Now, we've reached the most critical question. If the heart can adapt for so long, what causes it to finally fail? The answer isn't weakness. The answer is loss of reserve. You see, the heart doesn't collapse simply because it's damaged. It collapses when it can no longer compensate for that damage. Think of this reserve as flexibility. A healthy heart has options. It can beat faster when you need it to. It can relax more deeply between beats. It can ramp up its output when you're under stress. But this silent adaptation we've been talking about consumes these options, one by one. Each small structural change reduces the heart's flexibility. In the beginning, the heart has plenty of margin, plenty of reserve. So, your daily life feels completely normal. But over time, that margin shrinks. The heart becomes efficient only within a very narrow, specific range. Once you step outside that range, trouble begins. This is exactly why cardiac events often happen during moments that seem relatively minor. Maybe it's a mild infection, a single sleepless night, a bout of emotional stress, or even just getting dehydrated. A sudden spike in blood pressure could do it. But these things aren't the causes. They're the triggers. The real cause is the long-standing loss of reserve that's been happening for years. When that reserve is gone, even these small stressors can overwhelm the entire system. This is why people so often say, "But I was fine yesterday." And they're telling the truth. They were fine, but only within a very fragile balance. Their heart was already operating right at its limit. There's no alarm bell that sounds when your reserve is getting low. There's no pain receptor for running out of margin. There is only failure, which happens when the demand on the heart finally exceeds its capacity. This is what makes heart disease feel so sudden. But from a biological perspective, nothing sudden happened at all. The heart simply ran out of room to adapt. One of the most misunderstood parts of heart disease is the role of plaque and blockages. People tend to imagine a pipe that's slowly filling up with gunk until it suddenly closes off. But that picture is incomplete. Many people live with plaque and never have a cardiac event. On the other hand, some people have minimal blockages and still suffer a total collapse. Why? Because the blockage alone doesn't determine the outcome. Your reserve does. A heart with good reserve can tolerate a partial obstruction. A heart with poor reserve can't tolerate much of anything. This completely reframes how we should think about prevention. Prevention isn't about trying to eliminate every single risk factor. It's about preserving your heart's reserve. And reserve depends on flexibility, not perfection. This also explains why heart rhythm disturbances, like arrhythmias, often appear so late in the game. Electrical stability in the heart depends on healthy tissue structure. As the heart remodels itself under stress, the electrical pathways become distorted. Signals don't travel as smoothly as they should, and the risk of an arrhythmia increases. But again, this happens quietly, behind the scenes, until one day, the rhythm destabilizes, and it feels completely sudden. Your heart didn't fail because it stopped trying. It failed because it had been compensating, non-stop, for years. Understanding this fundamentally changes how we should listen to our bodies. Pain is not the main message. Fatigue isn't just a sign of weakness. Reduced capacity isn't laziness. These are the early signals of a declining reserve. But our modern culture teaches us to override these signals. We're told to push through fatigue, ignore the need for rest, and normalize being exhausted. We celebrate endurance. Biology doesn't. Biology values recovery. The heart absolutely depends on recovery to restore its reserve. But recovery has conditions. It requires low stress, adequate sleep, metabolic rest, and a sense of emotional safety. When these things are consistently absent, the heart never gets a chance to fully replenish itself. It just keeps adapting. And adaptation without recovery is a slow, steady erosion of your health. This is why so many health conversations that focus only on numbers like cholesterol or blood pressure often miss the bigger picture. Numbers can capture the damage that's already been done. They don't capture the strain that's happening right now. And it's that constant strain that depletes your reserve. By the time your numbers start to look bad, the process is already quite advanced. Here at Health Reimagined, we approach heart health differently. We ask different questions. What signals is the heart responding to every single day? What forces are quietly shaping its structure? What patterns in your life are preventing recovery? This approach doesn't rely on fear. It relies on understanding. Because when people truly understand that heart disease isn't a sudden betrayal, but a long negotiation between stress and adaptation, they stop waiting for pain to be their guide. They start paying attention to their environment. And your environment is modifiable. Not overnight and not perfectly, but in a meaningful way. Small changes in your sleep quality, reducing your chronic stress load, finding a better metabolic rhythm, making time for consistent recovery, these are the things that restore your reserve. And restoring that reserve can completely change your health's trajectory. This is why some people can improve dramatically without any dramatic interventions. Their heart finally gets permission to rest. And a resting heart is a repairing heart. Not instantly, but steadily. The most dangerous myth about heart disease is that it strikes without warning. The warning was always there. It just wasn't painful, and pain was never the heart's primary language. The heart speaks through its performance, its resilience, and its ability to recover. When those things start to fade, it's not just getting older. It's adaptation reaching its limit. Understanding this pattern prepares us for the next organ in the chain, because the heart doesn't fail alone. The heart and the kidneys are deeply, intimately connected. The same pressure that reshapes the heart also reshapes the kidneys. And kidney damage often begins long before your blood tests start to change. In our next video, we're going to move from the heart to the kidneys. We'll explore why kidney disease also develops silently, why the early stages are so often missed, and how the exact same pattern of compensation and eventual failure appears all over again. Because once you see this pattern, you start to see it everywhere. And seeing the pattern is how Health Reimagined turns confusion into clarity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.